on YouTube Live. This Hangout on Air is live. We're live. Hello. Hi. It's the first Tuesday of the month, and that means it's time for At Home with Waldorf. And I am hoping that this is working. So I'm here a few minutes early today. Start. I don't know. Because can help. Start broadcast. Understand. Oh, here we go. All right. I'm hoping this is it. One viewer. Hello. All right. Yay. Hi. Hi. It is November 1st, and I'm Jean. Welcome to At Home with Waldorf. Really excited because it looks like it's working. I have a new interface here, technology-wise, and I was a little worried. But welcome everybody to At Home with Waldorf. It's November. Hard to believe that it's November. And here in Northeastern Ohio, on November 1st, it is over 70 degrees, which is actually really exciting. It's beautiful fall weather here, incredible colors in the leaves and trees, and I'm in Cleveland, so it's a really good day for a World Series baseball game. So we're hoping tonight's the final game. If you're watching the recording of this, of course, we will all already know who won the World Series 2016, but a lot of excitement here in Cleveland. So what I would like to ask you to do is let me know in the chat box if you can see and hear me. So I can see that there are people watching, and I'm just hoping everything's working because, like I said, the technology is a little different than it's been. So if you could just pop into the chat, I'm going to put something in the chat right now. If you could just let me know in the chat box if you can see and hear me, that would be really helpful because it's the technology that gets me every time. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and welcome everybody. And it looks to me like this is broadcasting just fine. So if you can see and hear me and you're watching on the website, please type into the chat, hello. Oh, good. Yay. That's so great. Great news when technology works properly. All right. So here we are. I'm going to give it a few more minutes for people to join us here. There is, if you're new to these At Home with Waldorf broadcasts, there is a chat box below the video, and you can enter a comment as a guest. You can log in through Chatwing. I think you can log in through Facebook and Twitter and who knows what else, but I'd love to hear from you, so please say hello. I can follow along the chat while we're going through the webinar today, and I just want to welcome all of you. So I'm so glad you're here on this gorgeous early November day in Northeastern Ohio. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. Oh, great. Great. Apple, Marie, Sarah. Hello, everybody. Hannah, I'm so glad to see you all today. So I'm really excited about the topic today. And of course, as I said, I'm a little pumped because we have a big World Series baseball game here tonight. So everybody in Cleveland, there's a real buzz going on here. So great. I'm glad you can see me and hear me. So welcome everybody to At Home with Waldorf. It is November, and the topic for this month is rhythm reset. So how we can go into our holidays with a really strong foundation in terms of our rhythm, and that can be in our home life, in our family life, as well as it applies to homeschooling in both those arenas. So great. Hi Jennifer and Courtney, Beth. All right, from Colorado Springs, which is where one of my children live. That's so cool. Okay, so I just want to start out by saying that when I first came to Waldorf education, which was over 20 years ago, I kept hearing this term rhythm, and I was so confused by it. It just didn't, I don't know, for some reason it didn't like ring true for me. I couldn't really quite get a handle on it. And I remember reading this description of, it was advice about planning your day with this idea that there's some breathing in times and then some breathing out times. And I thought, I don't know what the heck that means. So what I wanted to do today is put together this webinar for you to really solidify and simplify that concept of rhythm, because it can be kind of baffling and it's a really Waldorf-y thing. A lot of people in Waldorf circles talk about rhythm, and it can be kind of an elusive term. So we're going to dive deep today into this idea of rhythm, about what it is, how it helps us, and also how it can help us really have a calmer household, which is always a good thing, especially when we're gearing up for a holiday season. So I'm going to give everybody an opportunity to pick an area of your life that you might want to make a small doable change in with some of the ideas that we talk about today. So hi everybody, Diana from England, welcome. So great when we see people from all over the world here. It's really fun for me. All right, and I'm getting better at that because I have a child in Japan right now, so I've learned to Skype and all kinds of things, which is pretty fun. So welcome to everybody from all over the world. I'm so glad you're here. All right, so yeah, go ahead. A lot of you have already said hello in the chat. If you haven't had an opportunity to do that yet, that's your entry into the giveaway. So I always have a fun giveaway during these webinars. So later on in the webinar, I will be choosing the winner of the giveaway, and I have a little hint, which is that it has something to do with simplicity. So I'll show you that in just a moment, what the giveaway is. So hi, Amanda. Nice to see you here. All right, so official introduction. Hello, I'm Jean. I'm the founder of Waldorf-Inspired Learning, where I help homeschooling mamas just like you to plan your own homeschooling curriculum and make homeschooling work for you in a really simple and sustainable way. I have guidebooks, I offer mentoring, and there is a lot of free resource material on my website, waldorfinspiredlearning.com. So if you haven't had a chance to look around there, please do. Okay, so yeah, so 3 things. Say hello in the chat. That's your entry into the giveaway. We're going to talk about rhythm today, and if you're having trouble seeing or hearing me, and I'll mention this again in a little bit, but sometimes Google Hangouts can get a little wonky, and really the simplest thing is to refresh the screen. That almost always does it. And there is always a replay. You can watch it on my website or on YouTube, and The replay never has the glitchy stuff, hardly ever has the glitchy stuff. So just know that that's available to you as an additional resource. All right, so oh, I'm going to show you, before I turn to the slides, I'm just going to show you the giveaway today that I mentioned. So please say hello in the chat box and where you're from, and that's how you enter the giveaway. And today's prize, or the lucky winner, is the Simplicity Parenting book by Kim John Payne. So I'm really excited about this book. This is one of the first books that I read that didn't make me feel guilty or like I was doing it all wrong or there was something wrong with me. Kim John Payne has an amazing way of speaking from his heart and really talking about sometimes hard subjects like technology or all the stuff we own or those kinds of things, but in a way that I think is just very heartwarming and comfortable. So if you already own this book, a lot of you may have read this already, or you might already own the book. If you already own the book and you're the winner, this is makes a great gift for a new parent or a friend. And it also can be a really good thing to give to your parents or in-laws if you want them to be a little bit more on board with the lifestyle that you're trying to lead. This it is not specifically about Waldorf education. However, Kim John Payne has all kinds of background with Waldorf education. His kids have gone to a Waldorf school. He's been a Waldorf trained teacher. He's also the author of one of my very favorite books, which is called Games Children Play. He's just a really, really good resource. So this is the giveaway prize today, and I'm really excited about that. All right, so hello to everybody who's just joined us, to Wendy and Matsunaga. That's so wonderful. Hello, Julie and Hannah, and I'm so glad to see everybody here. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over to my slides. And while I'm doing that, if you haven't said hello, go ahead in the chat box and say hi. You can also ask questions in the chat as we're going along. And we will have a dedicated time for Q&A toward the end after I do this presentation. So I am going to share my screen. Sorry for the goofy look here. Wait, I have to open this first. All right, give me just a minute here because this is always the moment of confusion. There's a little bit of a delay, so I just want to make sure that this is showing up before I go ahead and get started with the moving through the slides. Great. All right, so here we go, At Home with Waldorf. It is November. Hard to believe, but here we are. So happy November, everybody. And this month, as I said, we are talking about rhythm, and we're going to do a kind of rhythm reset before the holidays begin. And this is a really good time as we move into this often busy holiday season to think about the importance of rhythm in not only our family life, but also in our home schools. Okay, so here we go. So, of course, there's a little rhythm to this webinar here, and that is that we start with the meet and greet, which we've already done. And the bit of Waldorf wisdom that we'll be diving into this month, sorry about that, is rhythm, as I've said. You could jot down your questions as we go along or pop them into the chat box. And yeah, hi Hannah and Beth and Crystal. Yeah, so if Beth had put into the chat box that her computer cut me out a little bit, Yes, it was the Simplicity Parenting book. If you already own it, Beth, though, I was suggesting that you might want to give it away to a friend or to parents or in-laws, because it's a really good read for someone you love who has a relationship with your children. So that would be my suggestion. You're also always welcome to pass it along to someone else in this group. So, okay, meet and greet. We're talking about rhythm. Jot down your Q&A. I do have some verses and songs to share, and then we'll do the giveaway. And have a great Steiner quote to share with you too about the topic today. So here's what we're going to look at in this webinar. You might be wondering if it's for you, and if you want to ease daily tensions in your home, you're in the right place. And this is for you also if you hope to bring more joy and connection to your holidays this year. If you want to establish rhythms and rituals for your family, this is a good presentation for that, and it can help you create battle-free meal times and bedtimes. I will just say that even with my kids being older, I always find attention to rhythm to be incredibly helpful. And I'll tell you a little bit more about why as we go along. So here's the piece of Waldorf it's hard to say, Waldorf wisdom that we are looking at this month. The idea of rhythm and resetting that rhythm as we move into the holiday season. All right, so I've said a little bit about this, but I just want to say that your internet connection has a lot of effect on how well you can see me and hear me. Sometimes it's a Google Hangouts thing, but it can also be the connection that you have in your house. So in watching these webinars, it's really good to be in wherever in your house has the strongest connection is really, really good. And just know that you can click the refresh button if things freeze up or if you have any issues. And like I said before, it usually the replay is free of some of those glitches. So you can also go back and watch the replay if you've missed anything. And then I always suggest close tabs to minimize distractions. We are also easily distracted these days. And also I invite you to participate in the chat box. So I'm just checking in with the chat box now, and Diana is saying she'd like to learn more about how I can speed up my children in the morning. Oh my gosh, that is just one of the biggest challenges of homeschooling, I think. So yeah, I will talk about that. And that might be something that you want to focus on. I'm going to ask each of you to pick an area of your life or a time of day or activity that you want to focus on with these concepts. So Diana, that might be yours, is your morning time. That morning time can, as homeschoolers, I always say it's like such a double-edged sword to be this flexible, because sometimes that means like it's endless. It takes so much time to get everybody going. All right, here's my family. This is probably from a year ago, Thanksgiving, I think, 2 years ago. I don't know. So I have Brian and I have 3 children, 2 boys and a girl, and the boys are both grown and on their own. Hard to believe. One of them lives in Colorado, and the other one is right now in Japan for 3 months, which is super. He's having a wonderful, amazing time there. And then our daughter is a senior in high school. All right. We've been homeschooling for over 20 years. And like I said in the beginning, this idea of rhythm was so confusing to me. So I'm going to give you a little exercise to do. I won't be able to hear you, but go ahead and do this with me, because this is really an interesting exercise. So the question is, what is rhythm? And there are lots of rhythms that are all around us that we might be familiar with. But here is just one way to kind of grasp this idea of a regular, repeated pattern. So here's what I want you to do. We're going to play a little clapping game, and I'm going to clap out a rhythm, and then I want you to clap it back to me. So here we go. Okay, so clap that back. All right, now I'm going to give you a different rhythm, and I want you to clap it back to me. All right. So, sorry. Okay, sorry, my slides went wild on me there. Okay, so the second time around when I did it, there was more of a regular pattern to it. And you might have noticed when you tried to clap back the first rhythm, it's kind of disconcerting. Like it's really hard to follow when there's not a repeated pattern, when there's no pattern to it. So the actual definition of a rhythm is that it's a regular repeated pattern. And we have all kinds of rhythms around us, but I think it's really helpful to start with our own bodies. So think of your breathing. So our breathing and our heartbeat also are just part of our autonomic nervous system controls those, and they are regular repeated patterns that we don't even need to think about. But they are something that that's happening all the time. So there are all kinds of stories about babies in the womb, how they are comforted by this regular repeated pattern of the mother's heartbeat. Think about if you get really scared or really excited, your breathing and heartbeat can become irregular and faster than usual. So I think that's a really good way to think about that rhythm of the regular repeated pattern of a good solid rhythm is actually comforting. I like to think of that parallel to a calm, regular breathing pattern and a calm, regular heartbeat. Like you can relate the calmness, right, to the regularity of it. So when we start talking about rhythm in terms of our home schooling and our families, I think it's really helpful to think in terms of that we want to talk about activities, like that one activity follows another rather than an activity being scheduled at a particular time. And another really helpful piece to do with rhythm is to create a ritual that goes with the rhythm that we, particularly when we're working on establishing a new rhythm, rituals really help ground the rhythm or the rhythmic activity and help to carry it so that it doesn't take as much effort on our part. Hannah is asking a question in the chat. How do you create habits with emotionally driven children? It's a really good question. Specifically, my 14-year-old never does anything to completion or without a discussion of fairness or simply arguing. So yeah, arguing about things is a really, it's a challenge that often derails us, right, as parents. And Hannah, I'm going to suggest that you maybe work on a particular rhythm toward the end, we're going to talk about creating a small doable change in our families. But what I will say about this is that if it comes up at particular times, like maybe it's more likely to come up during homeschooling lesson time or toward the end of homeschooling, either toward the beginning, kids can be really argumentative, or toward the end when they're beginning to get tired. And really it's best for us to think about strengthening the rhythm around that activity while at the same time accepting the argumentation but not calling too much attention to it. So we don't want to ignore our children, right? That's not really a very polite thing to do. But at the same time, the more we get into a discussion about fairness or anything like that, the more sort of energy we bring to the situation, and it can so quickly turn into a power struggle. So the idea is that we want to diffuse the power struggle, and a strong rhythm can really, really help with that. Yeah, so kids can be argumentative, and they can go through really argumentative phases too. I mean, certain kids' personalities are more argumentative than others, and then certain ages have that tendency too. I've certainly been through that with one of my boys in particular. And a strong rhythm can really, really help. A strong rhythm and not reacting to their argumentativeness. Those are both good things to keep in mind. Okay, so what are some examples of rhythm? The seasons, the months, the days of the week, really anything where one activity or event almost automatically follows another, right? So the seasons, winter's going to follow fall, and then spring's going to follow winter. You know, Wednesday always follows Tuesday. Those are regular rhythms that are all around us that hold us really. They ground us in space and time, and we don't really have to do anything about them. They're just happening. So that's the idea, that we want to develop rhythms and rituals within our families that have that strength to them, that they just automatically happen, so that there isn't as much arguing or as much of a challenge in that way with our children. Just like holidays are a natural rhythm, night follows day. Please and thank you can be a kind of rhythm, and it's a really good way to train our children in the concept of rhythm. I remember I used to feel kind of uncomfortable demanding that my children say please and thank you. You know, I would just be inconsistent. Sometimes I would expect it, sometimes I would let it go. But when I read Kim John Payne's book, Simplicity Parenting, it really, it was a whole different take on it, and really I gained a new appreciation for the idea that actually what we're helping our children do is recognize this rhythmic pattern of human interaction. And it's just another way to strengthen that in our families. Family dinners are a really great place to start, and I'm going to use in terms of developing a super strong rhythm. Some of you might have great family dinners already and you're really happy with how those are going, and that's wonderful, and it will help you to then transfer that to other situations. Family dinner time is still something that I hold incredibly dear, and my whole family knows that when they're here it's something that we almost always sit down to do. Now that, of course, is going to change as your children grow. And just for an example, as kids are teenagers and have more and varied activities, my daughter's a speed skater, and she has skating 2 evenings a week. One of them, we just have to have dinner earlier, which we can do and always have done that. The other one, we really miss dinner because she is skating right at dinner time and she can't eat right before she skates. So she eats afterward. But that's only 1 day a week, and that didn't start happening until she was probably 14 or 15. So know that the rhythms are going to change through different phases or seasons of your life. And it's really, if you have an established rhythm and then you make exceptions to it, that's very different than not having any rhythm at all to start with. Okay, So why is rhythm so darn important? um, so I think the very first most important thing to think about is that rhythm builds predictability. And children who experience predictability are much more secure. So the more rhythm that we can create in our children's lives, the less argumentation we're going to get, the less unsure of what to expect they are going to feel. Now, of course, this varies from child to child. Some children are really easygoing, and you could have very little rhythm in your life and they would still be seen fine. I will say that all children benefit from a strong rhythm, but children who seem to just have a harder time adjusting to life, that argue with us, children who have maybe movement, spatial integration issues, have learning issues, have any kind of what might be diagnosed as ADHD, those children, I will say, just benefit hugely from us strengthening the rhythm in our lives and in their lives. So it's important to all children, and as I said, it helps them feel more secure. Rhythm also builds trust, and there's this idea of it builds up relational credits with our children. So the more they trust us, the more they're willing to say yes when we ask them to do particular things. A strong and established rhythm also takes a lot less effort on our part. A lot less of our will has to be called forth to make whatever it is we're trying to do happen. And then finally, rhythm lays a really strong foundation, as I said, for cooperation and connection. And connection is really our goal, right? That we want a strong connection with our children, and rhythm is really the way to do that. So let's talk about, well, first I want to give you a quote from Kim John Payne. This is from the Simplicity Parenting book. And he says, increasing the rhythm of your home life is one of the most powerful ways of simplifying your children's lives. And I just think that's a really telling quote, because if we focus on simplifying, there's so many benefits that we get from it, benefits that we can't even really foresee. So this idea of rhythm, I mean, now that I understand it, I can see why it is such an incredibly important part, and why it's used so much in Waldorf circles, because it really can create the scaffolding that we need to then build everything else upon. Okay. So I want to introduce you to this idea of one small doable change. Some of you might be familiar with it. Like I said, this comes from out of Simplicity Parenting work. I am a trained Simplicity Parenting coach, so I've led workshops locally. I use these ideas in all the work that I do with homeschooling parents. And this one idea of the one small doable change and something called the change wave process, which I'm going to introduce you to in a minute, these are two of my favorite things from the Simplicity Parenting work. So the idea of one small doable change is that you can start really small. And often when we try to change something in our families and we're not completely successful, it's often because we're trying to, we need to start even smaller. So often, I know for me, I have this tendency to once I decide I'm really going to work on something, I can be very, very determined, and see things through to the end. But what derails me is that as soon as I start thinking about one thing, pretty soon it grows into this huge project with a capital P. And then I spend all this time designing some change in our lives, only to try it out and have it not work perfectly. And then I feel like a complete failure. And why did I waste all of that time? And it, I feel like this is a pattern. This always happens to me. And really what I've learned is that if I just start smaller, I can be so much more successful. So that is my very first tip, is to start small. It's so, so, so important. And doing this one small doable change is a way to do that. So you start with this idea of where are you dissatisfied? And actually dissatisfaction can be a good thing. It can be the place where that helps us recognize that we want change, right? So so think about where you are dissatisfied in your day, in particular, in your day or your week, and then let that dissatisfaction bring you the energy to fulfill or to create some sort of change. At the same time, it's very important for us to accept that there is going to be failure and there is going to be a falling away, meaning we give something a try, but it didn't work out the way we were expecting it to. So, please note that that is likely to happen. And that's okay. We can actually use those as opportunities to learn and to practice anew, which again, it might be that we need to chunk down this idea or this change even smaller than we did to begin with. Or it might mean that we need to tweak it and think about a different way of bringing this to our children and our families. Okay. So here is an image of the simplicity change wave. And like I said, this is just such an important concept, I think, and one of my favorites in the simplicity parenting work. And the idea, it might be a little bit hard for you to see, but on the top you see this, they both start with this feeling of dissatisfaction. So maybe there's a point in our day where we're really feeling frustrated because it always seems to fall apart. And that might be where we decide that we want to do something different, right? So we get kind of hopeful about that and we decide that we're going to, all right, I'm just checking that this is still, yeah, okay, sorry, a little distracted, just making sure everything's still working. So, excuse me, that dissatisfaction is a place where we start to think, okay, I can do this. You know, I can do this differently than I've been doing it. And then we create some sort of change. But the usual pattern, and this is so exactly, this is the top picture here on the screen. This is so exactly what I have always done, which is I start to feel some success, but then something happens and it's not working exactly as I imagined. And then despair and shame set in. Failure happens, and then despair and shame set in. And when I learned about this sustainable cycle in the simplicity change wave, I had this huge aha moment where I thought, oh, when things don't work out, that doesn't mean I have to feel despair and shame. I can actually appreciate that as an opportunity to tweak or to redesign something new and then just try again. So the reality is that when we're trying to create change in our family, it's really the reality of parenting, truthfully, that we try something and it works for a while and then it stops working and we need to regroup and try again. We don't give up as parents, right? We don't just throw in the towel and say, well, this didn't work, so I guess I'm done. We do keep trying, which is amazing. You know, it's a wonderful thing that it's, you know, our children are so lucky that we are determined parents. But when I first came across this, I remember feeling such a sense of relief that we could actually celebrate when things fall away or when we fail, because they're an opportunity to try again. So that is the simplicity change wave. And now I want to talk about giving you the example of family dinners. So a family dinner is really more than just a meal, right? Family dinners represent a time together, a real togetherness that can build real strength, bonds within a family. So it's fascinating to me because there really are studies that show, multiple studies that show that the more often families eat together, the more likely, so children are then more likely to do well in school, eat fruits and vegetables, build their vocabularies. They're less likely to do all the kinds of behaviors that we want to avoid: smoking, drinking, drugs, suffer from depression, develop eating disorders, etc. So start with family dinners. If you don't feel like you have a solid family dinner thing down, that's the place to start. If you do feel like you have a solid family dinner thing down, and no judgment either way, and I'll tell you a little story in a second, but if you do feel like you have this down, then use that as a way to think about how you could apply sort of what works, take what works there and apply it to a situation that's not working so well in your family. So when my boys were little, oh my gosh, they were so active. These two boys, 16 months apart. And our family dinners, I remember there was a phase where they were horrendous. You know, we got maybe 4 minutes where we were all sitting down at the same time. And then it would, pretty soon somebody was up, somebody didn't like this, somebody, you know, whatever. And I remember feeling like I was such an incredible failure. And one tiny little change that I made that made a huge difference, not that it extended the amount of time that they could sit, but it made a huge difference in our lives, was that I asked everybody to be responsible for just one piece of dinner. So I almost always have cooked dinner. One of the boys was assigned setting the table, one was asked to clear the table, and then my husband most often did the dishes. And as soon as everybody just had one little piece, one little role, and my boys would rotate that usually for a week at a time. So one of them would set one week and the other clear, and the next week they would switch. And it made such an enormous difference. And again, not that the amount of time that everybody would sit still and have conversation, that was my expectation at the dinner table, that did not increase for years yet to come. But it did help everybody feel like they had a piece in this very important part of our day. And things began to shift from there. So that's the kind of small, doable thing that I'm talking about here. Just one tiny little change. Even though I had this huge image of this dinner that I wanted, where I wanted, you know, this whole long list of things that I wanted, I had to start with one really small piece. Okay, so here, just to use the family dinner time as an example, here are some really simple ways that you can use the concept of rhythm with family dinner time. So the very first thing is to have a meal plan. I'm going to show you a picture of my current meal plan in just a second. I use and have used for, I think, 2 years, yeah, an online tool called Plan to Eat. If you're interested, you can find out more on my website about it. I would love for you to, if you are interested, to check that out. It is an affiliate link, so that means that I get a small commission if you choose to sign up for it. But it's a really amazing tool that's made a huge difference in my life. You don't have to use it. You can also just have, before that, I had, binders of favorite recipes, or however you do it. Having a meal plan, I think, is really, really important. I remember when my kids were little, I thought, oh, I'm home all day. I have all the time in the world, right? I don't need a meal plan. And so it would get to be 4:30 every day practically. And I would think, what the heck am I making for dinner? And then I would feel really, really, really frazzled, because that's not really the time of day to start thinking about dinner. So now, first thing in the morning, I always know exactly what's going to be for dinner that night. And a huge benefit of that is that as your kids get older, they can then take some responsibility for making dinner. So if I'm stuck out somewhere at a meeting or at some event or something, everybody knows the plan is on the side of the refrigerator. Any member of my family can now make dinner. And my kids were able to do that. Actually, the boys learned to do that, not super fancy dinners, but they learned to do that when I had a really difficult pregnancy with my daughter. And so they were like 8 and 9, I think, at the time. So if it's not working well, simplify. That's my mantra for today. And you can keep it really simple by having a theme for each night. And you'll get to see a picture of that in just a second. Some of you might be great at this already, which is cool. Okay. I don't know why the screen is not changing. Here. I'm hoping you all can see the simplifying the dinner screen. All right, so and I talked about giving everybody a small role. That's a really helpful thing. So here's a picture of my weekly meal plan. I'm going to just say a few things about this because it's kind of an unusual week here. Oh, good. Okay. Let's see. Across the top, you'll see the themes for each day of the week. So soup and salad Sunday, meatless Monday, taco Tuesday, wild card Wednesday, slow cooker Thursday, family dinner Friday, and pizza on Saturday. So those have been our themes for a long time. They've tweaked it a little here and there, but it really works well for us. And then when you look at the this week, this comes from Plan to Eat, by the way, if you're curious about that. And before I forget, let me just say that Plan to Eat has an annual sale starting the day after Thanksgiving. So if you are interested, they have a 30-day free trial, and then you could purchase it. It's half price, 50% off that Thanksgiving weekend, which is super cool. That's always when I renew. But so on Sundays, I make extra stuff for the week. Sometimes I make freezers for the dinner, so dinners for the freezer. Sometimes I make sauces or put together little dinner kits where I have everything that's needed. Like this past week, I was doing these teriyaki kits where I had the sauce and all the vegetables inside one bag, Ziploc bag, and all that needs to be done is cut up the chicken and saute it and then add everything in. I don't have anything later in the week because my daughter and I are going on a trip together, super exciting, on Thursday. But one thing I wanted to point out is that I had originally, you'll see, planned for tonight, November 1st, meatballs and creamy kale, and I didn't get the meatballs done. So the super cool thing is that sometimes I do vary from the themes, but the super cool thing is that tonight, because I didn't get the meatballs done, we're going to go back to having tacos, which I have everything, you know, I always have everything for some very simple family meals on hand, no matter what, so they can be sort of the plan B, the backup. So I can always fall back on that, is what I'm saying. All right. So now I want to ask you what you would like to do for your small doable change. And here's how it works. Think about a flash point, I would call it, during your day, or a difficult point of your day. And also think about where you can introduce a place for pause, calm, connection, and maybe even a ritual. So you want to think about a part of your day that you feel like would really benefit from bringing more rhythm to it. Because rhythm and ritual can really soothe and steady those moments. So it might be morning time, like was mentioned before. It could be dinner time if you're feeling like that's a little crazy right now. It could be, it's often a transition, could be some transition time, like trying to get out of the house. It could be a point in your day when your children are particularly argumentative, as was also mentioned. All right, so think about what your small doable change, what the point in your day might be that you would like to develop a change around, and I'd love to hear in the chat box what that might be. So, yeah, if you're willing to share, that would be really great, because then maybe others will have ideas for you too about things that have worked for them. And then here are the steps for you to take to design your small doable change. So you want to start with your dissatisfaction and see if you can name it, because that can actually really, really help. So I remember my dissatisfaction with our meal times long ago was that I felt like we weren't connecting. That was my dissatisfaction, that my huge dream for mealtime was that we would all feel really, really connected and we would have time to sit down together at the table, around the table, but the connection didn't feel like it was happening because things were so chaotic. Let me know what you want to design a change around, and start with that feeling of dissatisfaction. Okay, so then the next step is to imagine things better. And it really helps to visualize this. I know that's hard to do on a webinar, but maybe take some time later to visualize how you really want them to be. So in my example, I wanted a warm, fuzzy feeling around dinner time. That's really what I was aiming for, and I was not getting that. And then the next thing is to design the small doable change. And remember to chunk it down super, super, super small. So like my example before was that everybody just had one role. And really, I didn't even realize, I thought I was having everybody help with something. But the reality was that everybody just then felt more invested in dinner, right? Felt more like they had a part. Okay, and then celebrate your success, but also your failure, right? If it doesn't work, if your small doable change doesn't work, that's a good thing. It's an opportunity for you to try something else. All right, so I'm going to just read a few of the things in the chat box because this is really great. So Amanda is saying breakfast time is shifting with the seasons. And oh, that's so absolutely true, Amanda. It always happens for me. Even my interest in what I'm making shifts enormously with the seasons. So yeah, need to rethink when to do the walk, etc. So Amanda, think in terms of the order, which is clearly what you're thinking about already, but maybe your one small change is just to try one thing differently for now. Like maybe your one small change is to do the walk earlier or later when it's warmer, whichever it is. But don't try to change everything at once, right? Like I am warning everybody against. Beth is saying start with family dinners, which we don't do at all right now at the table, but I would like to start my day before my son is up with yoga. So yeah, there can be rhythms that we want to introduce for ourselves as well. So definitely, I'm working on my morning routine right now too, and it's amazing how some attention to that can make such a big difference. And it helps us feel, I think, much more organized and much more grounded. So yeah, you could work on both of those at once, Sarah, but I would just suggest doing one that's a family one. Or Beth, I meant. Okay, and then Sarah's saying, I teach yoga in the mornings and get home 45 minutes after the kids get up. It's tough because, yeah, because you've been up for a long time already and they're just getting started. Yeah, so maybe there's some ritual, Sarah, that you could introduce that, I don't know what it would be, because in some ways it feels like you need a little bit of a break, but that you want them to get going. So I can't think of something off the top of my head, but some little ritual that indicates, or maybe some, like as soon as you walk in the door, they do blank. And maybe it's something that gives you a couple of minutes to kind of regroup, but a ritual seems like it would be the right thing. Yeah, dinner, it can definitely be chaotic with teenagers. Oh my goodness. Yeah, yeah. I have found though with my kids, and some of you have probably heard me say this before, that my kids all know that we sing a blessing at our house before a meal, before dinner. And it can feel sort of goofy sometimes or something, especially with older kids, but I'm always absolutely amazed when these 20-something-year-old boys who are 1.5 feet taller than I am come to my house with their friends, and we all sit down, hold hands, close our eyes, and sing. And it just is something we do. And that's how rhythm can really carry you. So I strongly recommend for those folks who are thinking about dinner time as their time of day that they're dissatisfied with, I strongly recommend some kind of blessing, because it can just bring everybody together and ground everybody in such a good way. And maybe just getting everybody around the dinner table is your small change. Okay, yep. Small steps for sure, for sure. Morning time seems to be a popular one. Oh, and stepping away from the computer. Oh my goodness, so important. And so often we have to, we have to be modeling what it is that we want our children to be able to do. All right, well, I hope that that gives you a really good sense of a way to begin this process. And like I said, my strongest advice would be for you to start small. I think we all tend to have grand plans. And I don't know why, but we think we can do it all at once. I don't know what it is, but many of us suffer from that. I know for a fact. So, yeah. So start small. Let me know if you have any questions specifically that we can answer at this point, that I can answer. Now hang on, because I'm looking for the chat. Here we go. Back to the chat. Yeah. We are all guilty of that. It's so true. Just tonight, my husband walked out the door. You know, we have this big World Series game here tonight. So, and we're having tacos for dinner. So my husband left and I said, you'll be home around dinner time, right? And he says, and what time is the hat? Which is like, and then I say, this is hilarious. This is the webinar that I'm doing today, because I say, what time has dinner been for the past 20 years? And he says 6:30. I'm like, yeah. Oh my gosh, it's so funny. So then what does he say? But, well, sometimes you're sitting at the computer at 6 o'clock. So I'm guilty too. It's a hard thing. It's a really hard thing. And for me, it's like, okay, I'm just going to check one more thing. If nobody else is ready, I'm going to go check one more thing. And what I realize is that, and this is what I've been doing in the past week, is when there's that creep where I start to get kind of more and more distracted, or worse and worse about not disengaging myself, then I have to, there has to be some small doable change that gets me back on track. And so my latest one in the past week has been that when I go to start dinner, which is usually like around 5 o'clock, sometimes 5:30, then I don't go back on my computer, even if I have downtime. So I'll just have something loaded on my phone that I can listen to if I have some extra time. But I don't go back to a screen where I'm looking at a screen. I allow myself to listen to something, but I'm not looking at a screen. All right. Wendy has a question, which is, we always sit at the table together, but my 4.5-year-old son keeps wanting to leave the table before us and not finishing his meal. How can we persuade him to keep the rhythm of staying to eat? Yeah, that's a tough one. And, I think that it's a matter of extending it in little bits, like a little bit at a time. And I know with my boys, I would institute things like, if they started to get up, I would say, we all stay at the table until everyone is finished. That's just what we do in our family. Those kinds of lines are really, really helpful. This is what we do. And you're not going to get immediate compliance from the very first time you try to make this change, but the goal is to extend it a little bit more and a little bit more. And it can help with making, like, whoever the slowest person to eat is, you might point out, you might say that we're going to, and make it a parent, not a kid, but you might say, we're going to stay here until dad's done eating, or we're going to stay here until, that would be true in my family because I eat fast, but, we're going to stay here until everybody's finished, and just see what happens. Like I said, it's not going to change immediately, but some things like that, can be really, really helpful. Okay, Amanda asks, did you find a morning walk helpful for your family when you had 2 or 3 in the grades, or we did walks later, Amanda, because of that very thing. So our morning walk, we would get started so late then on lessons. It was just really challenging. When my boys were young, like kindergarten, 1st grade, 2nd grade, I was okay. Probably kindergarten, 1st grade, I was okay with that. And they would play for a while and we'd start later. But when I had multiple kids doing multiple lessons, we could not go for a walk first thing. It just did not ever work. And so we would either do it right before lunch or right after lunch. There were a couple years where we did it right before lunch, and they would really look forward to that. So I'd then be getting lunch together while they could go outside. Or we all go on a walk together. And then sometimes we did it after lunch, some years. Yeah. Listening to something. I'm that way too, Crystal. Oh my gosh. And it's so interesting because that's when I put on, I do a short meditation time in the morning, but I really benefit enormously from listening to some uplifting either talks or meditations. And that's what I will do because I know I need that in my day. So I might as well do that rather than go back to busy work or the computer or whatever. Okay, it is time for Q&A because it is now 5 o'clock. Oh, but first, I have a couple things to share. So I'm going to read a poem to you. Again, those who've been here before know that you will get, there'll be a link to the lyrics and words to these songs and verses in below the video soon after we are finished. And so you will for sure get that. But I have 2 November poems. I'm going to just read the first one, which is called November, and it's by a woman named Margaret Rose. And I just love this poem. November is a spinner spinning in the mist, weaving such a lovely web of gold and amethyst. In among the shadows, she spins till close of day. Then quietly she folds her hands and puts her work away. And then I have for you a St. Martin verse and a couple of songs that you can use for Martinmas, which is a holiday that's coming up. It's a festival that's often celebrated in Waldorf schools and communities. And I like to do a lantern, we always called it a lantern festival, and told the story of St. Martin, or told the story of a story of people sharing or giving to people less fortunate than them. And this verse of St. Martin that I'm going to share is really the story of St. Martin himself. And we've acted this out before. We've done it as a puppet show. And then there's some songs to sing. But what I was going to say is I love doing the Lantern Festival. You know, it's usually November 11th or 12th in Europe was the traditional time for Martinmas, but we've done it anytime from Halloween through Thanksgiving. You can even do it in winter, you know, but it's just really fun to get it in. Just don't feel like you have to do it on the exact right day. It's kind of the essence of the time of year, sharing with those people in need. So here's the verse of St. Martin. St. Martin rode through wind and snow on his strong horse, his heart aglow. He rode so boldly through the storm, his great cloak kept him well and warm. By the roadside a poor man arose, out of the snow in tattered clothes. I beg you, help me in my plight, or else I'll die of cold tonight. St. Martin stopped his horse and drew his sword and cut his great cloak through. One half to the beggar man he gave, and by this deed one life did save. So that's the story of St. Martin. And the songs, I have a wonderful page on my website dedicated to the Lantern Festival. So it's waldorfinspiredlearning.com/the Lantern Festival. And there are all kinds of resources there, including a sample invitation, some of the songs and verses, some ideas about what you could do, and incredible amount of directions on making lanterns yourselves, which to me is one of the best parts of it. So I encourage you to plan a lantern festival. All right, it's time for the giveaway. I'm excited for the giveaway today. Like I said, it's the Simplicity Parenting book by Kim John Payne. And today's giveaway winner is Julie Kern from Atlanta. So congratulations, Julie. I'm super excited to send you this book. And you can email me, Jean@waldorfinspiredlearning.com, and send me your address. And I will send that along to you. So congratulations, Julie, on winning the book. The rest of you, I have a discount on my mentor sessions, and they're 20% off. I offer these as a one-time, you could do an hour session with me, You can also sign up for a 4-session package. And there's a discount on those too. I just didn't put the price on there, but this discount is good through Friday at midnight, and the code is November Mentor, or NOV Mentor. All right. Yeah, congrats to Julie. Here, I'm going to leave you with this Steiner quote of the month. And this, we could all just put this on a note card, tape it up on your wall, put it on a Post-it note on your bathroom mirror or something, to remember the importance of this concept. And I hope you also remember to start small. The idea is, Rudolf Steiner himself said, rhythm can take the place of strength and will. So what a lovely concept. We don't have to work quite so hard if we can just get a strong rhythm established. Thank you, everybody. Yeah, it was really fun to put this together. Very good. Yeah, mine too. One of my favorite Steiner quotes. You can connect with me on Pinterest. I'm Waldorf Inspired, Facebook, Waldorf Inspired Learning, on YouTube, and all these webinars are on my YouTube channel. So I think it's under Jean Miller, but you can search Jean Miller Waldorf Inspired Learning. And then there's my email, jean@waldorfinspiredlearning.com. And thanks so much for joining me. It's been really fun. I've really enjoyed going over this myself. It's something we all need to come back to, I think. And I can the longer I explore Waldorf education, the more I realize how important rhythm actually is. And like I said, I was so baffled by it in the beginning. So start small with a small doable change, and let me know how it goes. So thanks for being here. See you next time on Tuesday, December 6th. We're going to talk about simplicity holidays. So actually, I think it's going to be really nice to extend some of the conversation today. We're going to use the change wave process again, and talk about how we can apply that to the winter holidays. So I hope you will join me then. Oh, good, your first time. So glad it was great. So thanks for joining me, everybody, and see you next time. Bye. Let's see.